So where now for the Conservative Party and this government? Well, Lord Malcolm Offord is Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State to the Scotland office. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Would you like to apologise for the mess the country is in right now?
Well, the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, in her 6-week period in the last week, did exactly that. And she fronted up and said that her plan, although it was a good direction of travel, the word she used was too far, too fast. And it did create turmoil and it did create instability, and she absolutely apologised for that.
The New York Times says that Britain is a global laughingstock. The Washington Post says Britain has slipped as a critical international player. Now it looks increasingly like an isolated Atlantic island. Do you, and indeed Liz Truss, take responsibility for that?
Well, I don't actually agree with that. There's all of the countries in the G7 are struggling with these challenging times that we live in, and we are probably the first of those countries to front up and try and work out how we break out of this trap that we're in, which is this high tax and low growth economy. And the simple reason that we're having to do that is because our public services are very precious to us. And in our society, we want to help the poorest and most vulnerable people. We have to do that through growing our economy. And if the cost of our service is going up at 3% per annum, but our economy is only growing at 1.5%, we can't make that add up.
Okay, but other countries haven't had 3 prime ministers in 3 months and 4 chancellors in the space of 4 months, have they?
Yeah, absolutely. But and you might say that is democracy being writ large. That is the government.
It's dysfunctional, isn't it?
It is not. Look, it is not an ideal situation in any way. But the Conservative Party has won a mandate in 2019 to deliver a levelling up agenda for this country, and that is what they need. That's what the Conservative Party needs to focus on right now.
How's the next leader going to have a public mandate?
The mandate comes from the general election of 2019. It was set out very clearly that the Conservative Party had an agenda to level up the country, to help especially those people in the at the lower end of our economy.
Sure, but Liz Truss didn't. Liz Truss didn't follow the last Conservative manifesto. She ripped it up.
She was wanting to have a change of direction to achieve the same aim, which is basically to level up the country, to get growth into the economy, to help us grow our public services.
She wanted to cut taxes for the highest earners. That wasn't in the manifesto.
We know that there was a number of policies that were brought in, you might say, out of left field, that should not have been bounced on people in the markets. The markets and people reacted badly against that, and they were withdrawn. She was very candid about that. And the new Chancellor's come in and said that the most important thing we need is stability, and that is what the markets want. It's what our foreign neighbours want, stability, and we've addressed that. And we have stability in our economy.
Would Boris Johnson provide stability?
For me, it's not necessarily about which particular the personality of any individual. What this requires is the Conservative Prime Minister to stand up and deliver the mandate that were given in 2019.
Who are you backing to be the next leader?
I'm not. This is a matter for the MPs, and they need to get their nominations in by 2.
It might be a matter for members. Are you a member?
I am a member, but this is not my. This is not a personal decision for me. I want to work.
Well, it might be. You might well have a choice.
No, but my role in government, my only reason for being in government is to get the best deal for Scotland inside the UK, and that means working with whoever the Conservative Party appoints Prime Minister. Okay,
so you'd be quite comfortable with Boris Johnson being Prime Minister then?
I'm not commenting on any of the individuals. I'm commenting on the actual state of what we need to do, which is get on and deliver the mandate for the people of Scotland.
Douglas Ross, though, is right when he says that the prospect of Boris Johnson returning to power would be a disaster for the Scottish Conservatives and indeed for the Union.
Well, the Union is in much better hands with a Conservative government in charge of it than any talk of separation, which is what the ruling Scottish government...
Have you seen the SNP's poll ratings?
That's the poll ratings are one thing. What I'm talking about is the long-term stability and growth of and economic health of the country. And if you think with the turmoil in the last 6 months, I can only warn you of what turmoil looks like if we had a separatist agenda with Scotland leaving the United Kingdom without a currency, with a massive deficit and with a hard border with England.
The Tory blogger Guido Fawkes, who's pretty plugged in to these matters, says that the Scottish Secretary, your colleague, Alistair Jack, is backing Boris Johnson. How does that help party unity in Scotland?
I have not spoken to Alistair about that. That's a matter for him personally. I can't comment on that. As I said before, the party will make its own decision to put up a minute so they can deliver the manifesto.
If Boris Johnson does become leader again, I mean, the Scottish Tories couldn't any longer remain part of the UK party. They would have to separate, wouldn't they, given everything that Douglas Ross has said about Boris Johnson, or else he'd have to resign.
To be honest, I don't think people on this programme, your listeners, particularly want to hear about the internal machinations of the Conservative Party. What they want to know...
That's all we've heard for the past week, with respect.
Well, what they want to know is that there's a Conservative government in place with an agenda to deliver the manifesto, which is to level up, and in particular to help those in our lower echelons of society improve their lives for the benefit of them and their families. And that should be what we're talking about.
Where's the democracy in this? I mean, how can it be right that the next Prime Minister of this country could effectively be anointed by just 357 Tory MPs in the space of just a few days?
Well, these are the rules of the system we have. If you want to change the rules, change the rules. But the Conservative Party won a mandate for 5 years. There's 2 years to go. It's up to the MPs to pick a leader, and the leader will lead, and then the public will have the say when the general election comes.
Well, the MPs and Sir Graham Brady chose the rules, and the way they've set this up, doing this in the space of a week, where's the opportunity for debate?
Well, we had 6 weeks of debate, and it didn't work out too well, did it? So therefore, what we want
So it's better we don't have any debate then?
No, I think there was a very big debate happening in the summer. What is highlighted, the big thing that's highlighted here, is that now a number one agenda item for whoever is in government is how do we grow this economy?
Okay, and how do you grow the economy?
Well, there's a whole number of ways we can do that. And of course, everyone's focused just on tax cuts. That is one way to stimulate growth. But the whole skills agenda, the levelling up agenda, is the most important thing that we need to do to supply side reforms, whether it's the free ports, whether it's the investment zones, it's the skills agenda, it's getting young people trained up so they can get into the knowledge economy, the digital and green economy. That's what we need to be focused on absolutely for the next 2 years.
Where do we find that investment, given that we're facing widespread cuts?
We're not facing the widespread cuts. That's the whole point of this. There's no appetite to make cuts. That's the whole issue.
Well, we're expecting cuts from the Chancellor in the coming weeks.
Well, what has emerged if the budget had been done originally in an orderly fashion with the OBR, what would have happened? What would have been that there would have indicated a requirement to find 60 billion. He's plugged half that gap with 30 billion by reversing the immediate tax cuts, and he needs to find 30 billion in efficiencies elsewhere, which I think is now every department is now challenged to do that.
Why shouldn't the people of Britain get a chance to have their say in a general election?
They absolutely will. We have a general election in the cycle every 5 years, and there will be a general election in either late 24, early 25.
But given we're about to get a new Prime Minister that the public haven't voted for, why shouldn't they have a choice over the matter?
Because we don't have a presidential system in this country. We have a parliamentary system. We vote for a party gets a mandate, and then it's up to the party to deliver that mandate. And if the people don't like what they've done, they kick them out.
Would you accept that the party is hopelessly divided at the moment? There seems to be different factions fighting against each other. I mean, can this party unite?
This party can unite and has got a duty to unite. There are factions. When you say there's factions, what there really are, there's philosophical arguments about how we go forward. But everyone has the same ambition and aim, which is to have a healthy, strong economy in order that we can invest in our public services, so that we can help all parts of our society, business, families, and also those who are most vulnerable. And we've all got the same aim. We're arguing about how we go about doing that.
Okay.
But the Conservative aim.
Okay, Lord Malcolm Offord, Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State to the Scotland Office. Thanks very much indeed.